Hello, Archie Dunlop here with Talking Astrology with Archie on Monday, November the 13th, 2023. Today, I want to briefly look at a few subjects. I don't have a main topic that I really want to focus on. Rather, I just want to look at some fragments. I want to look at the horoscope of British Home Secretary Suella Braverman, who has made some controversial remarks, for example, suggesting that the pro-Palestinian demonstrators in London are a mob. I think she described their march on Saturday as a hate march. So she is controversial. Furthermore, she suggested that the police in London are in some way biased in favour of the pro-Palestinian marchers. Now, that's quite a big deal because as Home Secretary, she controls the police. And so for a Home Secretary to criticise the police, that is a big deal. Interestingly, she's called Suella Braverman, and the reason she's called Suella, according to Wikipedia, is that her mother was a fan of Dallas, and she was called Sue Ellen, but her primary school teacher contracted that to Sue Ella. Apart from Suella Braverman, I want to continue talking about today's new moon, and I want to look at the new moon in terms of a Saros cycle because every 19 years new moons repeat. So we got a very similar new moon, a new moon in an almost identical degree in November 2004. So I want to look at that with particular reference to Ukraine because that new moon coincided with the Orange Revolution. And finally, I want to have another look at Israel and Palestine, and I want to compare their charts because it does seem that the synastry between Israel and Palestine is potentially really coming to a head, even this week. But before I do all that, I want to look at the astrology for today, the astrology and the I Ching for today, which is Monday, November the 13th, 2023. So top right, that is Suella Braverman, and so there we have the chart for noon today, set for New York. As you can see, there is a new moon. The new moon is past exactitude, set for New York. So the new moon itself was at 20 degrees 44 Scorpio. So the moon is moving away from that. But you can see Mars. Mars is right on that new moon. The breaking, as the new moon is slowly breaking up, you can see that Mars is right there, and Uranus is opposition it. So, all things being equal, the new moon opposition Uranus does dominate the day. So it could be quite an angry and stressful day. It's going to be difficult to relax. Some of us may be very focused on our emotions. There are things, we are really angry about. It may be to do with our own lives. It may be to do with the people around us, and it may be to do with the world at large. And I suppose that's kind of pretty obvious. I mean, I don't know. Just look at the controversy around Palestine and Gaza. People are angry about that. There are many things to be angry about today in our private lives, in terms of how we see the world. We want to express that anger, but it's kind of sort of kept secret in many respects. So there's a sort of private, brooding anger. Maybe we feel we can't express ourselves, particularly if we're angry about something political. something affecting society, because the moon in Scorpio is quite hidden. We're boiling. Some of us are boiling, but we're not yet exploding. So that's it reminds, what's that poem by Langston Hughes about was it about a raisin in the sun? Does it just fester there? Does it just keep festering, or does it at some stage explode? Yes, at Mars opposition Uranus is about the explosion. Do we just fester or rot, or do we at some stage explode? That may be a theme for today. So I think we do have to be careful. Some of us might want to explode, at least verbally, because we've got Mercury in Sagittarius. Mercury in Sagittarius is kind of on its own a bit there. It sees all this tension, and Mercury just wants to say it. Mercury in Sagittarius is kind of rather like the emperor, the emperor in his new clothes, in his new suit of clothes. Mercury in Sagittarius is perhaps the boy that wants to point out the obvious, that the emperor is naked. So some of us might want to do that. We might want to state the obvious, because people get angry about things, and maybe it's just obvious. But in stating the obvious, we might be attracting a lot of criticism. There's a price for stating the obvious. So perhaps we just have to be clever. As I said when I was talking about the whole week in general, Mercury is moving towards a sextile to Venus, and perhaps we have to use a bit of sort of diplomacy here. We can express our feelings, but we can't just express our feelings in the way we want to express our feelings, particularly with all this build up in Scorpio. We have to be clever. We have to read the room. So overall, stressful day. I don't think there's any way around that. And the fact that it's a stressful day we've got this build up in Scorpio is going to be reflected in my forecasts for the 12 signs. So here they are, my forecasts for the 12 signs. So these are my forecasts for today, which is Monday, November the 13th, 2023. Aries, you have a lot of power at your disposal, but how are you going to use it? There's a danger that you push things too far without considering why you are doing what you are doing. Instead, you need to look at the broader picture, where everything you do is about striving towards a higher purpose. Taurus, it's not about you. It's about the other people in your life. They're going through stuff, and they're finishing things, and they're starting things. You may be impacted, and your own plans may have to be put on hold. In terms of relationships, it seems that a new cycle is starting where emotional balance will be crucial. Gemini, there is certainly a danger that you jump to the wrong conclusions if you're lazy. But if you engage with the facts and you're ready to get help and advice from the right people, then you should be okay. At the same time, today's new moon may give you an opportunity to reorganize your environment and to sort out areas of chaos. Cancer, try not to do too much today. The new moon could be exhausting, though it could be an opportunity for Cancerians to make small beginnings, starting to be creative bit by bit and perhaps considering fresh projects. But if you commit too many resources too early, you might find yourself going in the wrong direction. Leo, a time to consider some foundational issues. What anchors you? Where do you feel most secure? Get the foundations right, and everything else falls into place. And maybe it's time to make a few changes. Something you're relying on may not be entirely reliable, and the anchors need to be shifted to firmer ground. Virgo, at first you might be ignored, but if you're saying something valid based on careful observation, then eventually you'll be noticed, even if it takes a few days. Looking at travel, it might be time to consider a new route or a new method of transport. Perhaps it will save you time or money, or else provide a new point of interest in your life. Libra, you perhaps need to have another look at your finances and how you're dealing with them. Whatever your situation, you could benefit from making a few changes, particularly now when you have a lot of insight about the overall situation. And don't be afraid of looking at the details. You'll find a way through. Scorpio, you know that things have changed. The change might not be obvious, but things are certainly different. And perhaps it's about shedding your skin like a Scorpio snake. A time of great power, but also a time of passing vulnerability. When you're ready, you can move out from under your rock. Sagittarius. Mercury, the communication planet, is establishing itself in your star sign, and there's so much you want to say, and you may be tempted to send off messages on many different mediums. But now is not the right time. There's a lot to think about, and some of your thoughts and feelings need to be worked through. You don't want to make a fool of yourself. Capricorn. Today's new moon has an impact on your patterns of friendships and relationships. Not necessarily in a bad way. It's more about realization and change. Some people are moving out of your life, perhaps because you've outgrown each other. But new people are arriving on the scene, and over the next couple of weeks, you must be ready to welcome them. Aquarius. You can have a successful day in the sense that you can cut through the surrounding chaos and make a powerful impression. But you do need to have focus. Things are all over the place, and there's an atmosphere of instability. You have to hold on to your goals and not deviate. And in the process, a new set of plans may emerge. Pisces. Look around you and think carefully about what you believe in. Beliefs are a way to understand the world without having to think too much. But sometimes the world changes in such a way that beliefs also have to change. And right now, you're starting to realize that some of your ideas are becoming less relevant to the world in which you live in. But a change of philosophy is something refreshing and not something to be afraid of. Okay, so now I want to move to the I Ching. And as always, I asked a question, the question being, what is Monday going to be like for people for people watching this video? And I just got a single hexagram, hexagram 24, return, and it doesn't move. And the idea here is that we may be in a situation where we've moved in a particular direction. We've decided to do something. It may or may not have worked too well. We might even have done something, quite negative regarding other people. Perhaps we've moved away from someone temporarily, or we've made some big resolution that we're never going back to them, that we've given something up, that washed our hands of it. And 24 is about returning, deciding, okay, we've gone as far enough as we want to go in a particular direction, and we now realize that it's time to go back. And it's okay. This is not a situation where we're sort of admitting defeat. It's not like that. It's just we've been doing something. We had to do it for whatever reason. It was necessary. And now we want to return back to normal. And so that's what we want to do. And the Wilhelm I Ching, has in parentheses after return a turning point. And that's quite appropriate given the fact we've got a new moon. So, and we know today is a new moon. It's a start of a new lunar cycle, and so the best way to deal with a new moon is to say, well, this is a new beginning. It's not a new beginning that we shout about. We just quietly get on with it. And so this new beginning for us, which the new moon is talking about, may be about returning. We've gone in a particular direction. We've discovered what we needed to discover. We've perhaps discovered our limits, and now we just want to return. And so perhaps that's the best way of using today's energies. And that's really it, because return doesn't move. The nuclear hexagram on return is the receptive. All of these, you've got these four broken lines in the middle. There's a kind of a hint there that in terms of the return, it's not fully in our control. We are responding to a situation. So, we've moved in a particular direction. We've tried to be active. We've tried to take the initiative. And now we're getting the feedback. And now we're seeing what's happened as a result of what we've done. And we're now responding. And our response, our natural response, our organic response is to return. And that's what we're doing. And by returning, we're actually creating a new cycle. And if we follow this cycle, things should work out just fine. Okay, so now I want to turn back to the astrology, and I want to look at the horoscope of Suella Braverman. Now, if you're not interested in the UK, of course, you might find this rather tedious, but I'm just looking at a chart. I mean, any chart should be interesting, whatever the chart. So let's look at Suella Braverman's chart. I said I don't have a time of birth for her, but if you consider her biography and how she's got herself into trouble, for a Home Secretary to criticise the British police, that is a big deal. By the way, I should say I'm not expressing any opinion on Suella Braverman. I'm just trying as far as possible to just state the facts. The facts as I understand it. I don't live in the UK. I'm feeling, I haven't been back to the UK since 2019, so I do feel somewhat distant from what's going on in the UK. It's just a long way away, and I'm not there. And so forgive me if I'm a bit rusty on what's going on in the old country. But so she has been a bit impulsive there, I think, criticising the British police. Bit impulsive, perhaps describing the pro-Palestinian demonstrators as a mob, talking about it as a hate march. And I think she has been Home Secretary. Home Secretary, and if you don't know, the Home Secretary, they deal with police, the borders. In European countries, I think the Home Secretary is sometimes called the Minister of the Interior. It's that kind of thing. It's sort of internal security, and certainly the police is what she covers, and law and order. She was Home Secretary a few years ago. Then she briefly got removed from office, and then she got it back. And I think she got removed from office because she shared some confidential, I don't know whether it's an email or some message. She shared something confidential with someone she shouldn't have done, and that got her into trouble, and she ended up losing her job. I think I've got that right. A bit vague on that. So the idea we get about her is that she's perhaps quite impulsive, and so here's her horoscope. And yes, she's an Aries. That kind of makes sense. So she's a lawyer. Uh, um, uh, I mean, yeah, she's a lawyer, so I think she was Attorney General. And then is that what they call it? And then she was Home Secretary. So that's her job, and she is on the right wing of the Conservative Party. Yeah, so she has a Sun in Aries. She is an impulsive woman. Sun in Aries has strong feelings, and notice she hasn't got any air in her chart except for Pluto in Libra. So Pluto in Libra is a generational planet. So I don't think we count that as air. Now, as I keep saying, air, yes, the air signs are associated with the intellect. That is true. But, just because you've got no air doesn't mean to say that you're not intelligent. Clearly, Suella Braverman is a very intelligent woman. She went to, I don't know, Oxford or Cambridge, one of the two. I can't, she's was a barrister, and clearly there's nothing wrong with her intellectually. But when you've got someone who's very intellectual like this, who is intelligent but who has no air in their chart, she's very single-minded. She feels she knows she's right. She's very, very certain about that, I would have said. Got an instinctive feeling that she's right. I mean, she has got the Sun in Aries, Mars in Leo. So, yeah, she's in the right as far as she's concerned, and it really doesn't need to be discussed. And these things can be summed up in simple words, like in terms of how you understand the Palestinian demonstrators. You describe them as a hate mob, and that's fine. That describes it. The sort of subtle discussions, and sort of nuances and whatever. That's not really a sort of, if someone who's got no air in their chart, you don't really need to go through that because it is apparent. And she has moon, she has moon in Scorpio. Now we don't know precisely where her moon is because I don't have a time of birth. But the noon chart is at 14 Scorpio, so her moon will be anywhere between around 8 Scorpio and 20 Scorpio. So Uranus in Taurus has been making an opposition aspect to her moon, but we don't know for sure whether it's happened in the past or whether it's ongoing. And she seems to have a Moon-Uranus conjunction in her horoscope. So this is someone who, with Moon-Uranus, is quite argumentative and is perhaps attracting a controversy, wherever she goes. That's possible. And this Uranus, notice she's got Mars at 2555 Mars at 2555 Leo, and it's actually conjunct the North Node. So with Mars conjunct the North Node, in a way it is appropriate for her to be strident and aggressive. Mars is an aggressive planet. It likes to get into a fight. It likes to express itself and its feelings, and it's not a coward. And she's got Mars on the North Node, so she's doing the right thing. Now, you might not like what she's doing, depends on your political views, but for her and for her destiny, she's doing the right thing with Mars on the North Node by being aggressive, by stating things the way she sees it. That's appropriate for her destiny, I would have said. And this Mars is square Uranus. Again, it's more of the same. Mars-Uranus square is someone who courts controversy. Okay, it could be someone who courts accident, but you see, Mars-Uranus is quite an accident-prone combination. And if it's unconscious, if we have Mars-Uranus and we're not really living it out, then we can be vulnerable to accidents. But she has decided how she is going to live out her Mars-Uranus square. She's going to live it out by getting involved in politics, by expressing her opinions, by not caring who she offends, by not caring what kind of reaction she gets. By it's been, one of the accusations against her is that by criticizing the police, she was kind of undermining their authority. And there was a clash, I think, over the weekend between some right-wing group. Is it the EDF? Is that the English Defence League? I'm not sure. And the police. And so there is a view, those on the left were saying, well, by criticizing the police, she was actually in some way causing that. I don't know whether that's true or not, but that would kind of chime with her Mars-Uranus square. So really, that's pretty much what I'm going to say about her horoscope. I don't have a time of birth. I just wanted to mention her because she is in the news. I'm sure there's lots of other stuff I could go into, but I think I think I'll leave it at that. Now I want to move on to Israel Palestine. Very briefly. I don't have any specific comments here. Any specific major overarching theme for this video. But I've looked at the Israel chart in some detail a few weeks ago. And what I really wanted to focus on is the fact that Israel, when it became independent, had its sun at 23 degrees 40 Taurus. And that contrasts with the horoscope of Palestine. Now, I'm sure there are many charts for Palestine, but this is the Declaration of Palestine Independence and Statehood, which took place in 1988 in Algiers. So I've taken this chart, which I've set for 12:40 a.m. November the 15th, 1988. And you will see that the sun is at 22 degrees 50 Scorpio. So as I said before, Palestine and Israel, if you take the Palestine chart as being the main chart to go for, they came into being 6 months apart, obviously different years, but 6 months apart. So their suns are opposition each other. And so let me just, I normally do bi-wheel. This is a tri-wheel. I hope you can see this on the video if you're looking at it. I never know with these videos whether people are watching them, or it's been suggested to me that no one watches them. They just listen to them, so it doesn't actually matter what kind of pictures and charts I show. I don't know. So this is on the middle wheel. You can see there's Israel's sun at 2340 Taurus, and there's Palestine's Scorpio at 2250 Scorpio. So Palestine's sun at 22 Scorpio is less than a degree is opposition Israel's sun with less than a degree's orb. Orb is the difference. So an orb of 1 minute means that 1 arc minute is that the two planets or 2 points are 1 arc minute apart. An orb of 10 degrees would be that they're 10 degrees apart. So this opposition just shows it, doesn't it? Israel and Palestine at war with each other, opposing each other. That's the way it is. That's one of the reasons I love this Palestine chart for 1988, because the sun is opposition 6 months apart from Israel. Now, with what we've got here, that opposition is continuing to be activated. We had October the 7th when we had the Palestinian the Hamas invasion of Israel. Now we've got Mars. Look at Mars today. Mars is at 22:55 Monday, Mars is at 22-25 Scorpio. Mars is coming up to hitting Israel, to being conjunct Palestine's sun and opposition Israel's sun, and it's happening like tomorrow. And Uranus is already there, and of course Uranus is going backwards, so it's moving away from that. So it'll move on back onto the, I don't know, in a few months' time. And then we've got this new moon at this new moon which we've just had, which we've got today at 2044 Scorpio again, which is hitting Palestine and Israel's sun. So can we actually say anything useful because of that? The reason I'm saying can we say anything useful astrologically is simply because we already know that Hamas and Israel are at war. So given we know this, you could say that what I'm pointing out is just, well, so what? We know that already. So what I can say, I suppose, is say, well, the astrology certainly confirms it, but I would think with that, we would expect sort of some kind of, further escalation here. This isn't, this with this new moon on Palestine's sun and conjunct Palestine's sun, opposition Israel's sun. And you've got Uranus involved in the new moon. You've got Mars involved in the new moon. I don't see how there's going to be any possibility of the situations stabilizing anytime soon. Certainly not over the next couple of weeks. It is likely to intensify. That's what the new moon is suggesting. Because as I've said, it's a very dramatic new moon. Now, one final point I want to make about this new moon relates to the Saros cycle. Now, the Saros cycle is that when new moons repeat every 19 years. So if we look, so we've had a new moon today, and there was a new moon 19 years ago. There was a new moon on November the 12th, 2004. And I was sort of looking at, what were the events going on then? I remember at the time I was living in Bratislava, and I was actually living on the same street as the Ukrainian embassy. So I could see the Ukrainian embassy from the balcony. And so what was going on in Ukraine then is you had elections in Ukraine on, I think, November the 21st, and there were two candidates that kind of difficult to remember. One was Yushchenko and the other was Yanukovych. And Yanukovych was declared the winner, and this result was seriously contested. Yanukovych, his support was in the east, in the sort of ethnic Russian parts of Ukraine, whereas Yushchenko his support came more from the west of the country. And yes, it was a contested election, and I don't know, perhaps what's most famous or infamous about it is that Yushchenko got poisoned, but with some dioxin, and his skin got sort of pockmarked, and I think he had to go to hospital, maybe in Austria, to get treatment. He survived, and so there was and then as a result of all this controversy about the election, there was this thing called the Orange Revolution. And that, that's all started as sort of these color revolutions that people talk about, very often US-backed revolutions in different parts of the world. I don't know about US involvement in the Orange Revolution in 2004, but that happened just after this new moon on November the 12th, 2004. So I've set this chart. I've set it for Kiev. I'm not saying that this chart is particularly dramatic. Um, Saturn was exactly on the IC. So set for Kiev, Saturn was in a very strong position. The foundations of the country were under threat with Saturn on the IC, and and indeed you got this orange revolution, and as a result, there was turmoil, and in the end, Yushchenko became a president. And you can see on Wikipedia, you can see the map of Ukraine, who supported Yushchenko and who supported Yanukovych. Yanukovych support all sort of in the east, Kharkiv, Donbass, and so forth, whereas Yushchenko in the west of the country. Well, also Yushchenko, I got quite a lot of support in the south as well. So it's so the support of Yushchenko is actually the areas of his support, the kind of areas that Russia probably has its eyes on right now. So why is this relevant? Is it just an interesting coincidence? I think what this might mean is that we might expect echoes. We might see things going on now which might echo what was going on in 2004. Protest. I think it was peaceful protest. It was not like 2014. The Orange Revolution, I think, was pretty peaceful, and so there might be peaceful protest in Ukraine. Maybe both sides. Maybe in the areas that Russia regards as being its own, and also in Ukraine itself. I mean, there's a lot to protest about in Ukraine. So, I think one needs to look at Ukraine and look at echoes of the Orange Revolution. Yeah, the Orange Revolution was in a way a sort of pro-Western thing, but maybe there's something. Maybe we'll see maybe we'll see something different. But I think that there may be protests about living conditions and so forth in Ukraine. And we may see more of that, but simply because of the echo with November the 12th. But maybe it's just coincidence. But I thought I had to point that out. One other thing, I'm not going to show the chart, that the previous lunation before that, if you go 19 years back again, was November the 12th. I don't know whether it was November. Was it November 12th, November the 11th? So, I mean, it was around then. There was a new moon around 11th, 12th, 13th of November 1985. So what happened then? Well, what was the big event just after that? Well, the big event actually was I think a first meeting between Reagan and Gorbachev. So perhaps that started the process of dealing with the tensions, some of the tensions of the Cold War, and hopefully that might mean that the US and Russia will start to communicate better than they have been. If we can go, even Reagan, conservative like anti-Russian Reagan can actually communicate with Russia. So I think. Well, but obviously Biden is not at Reagan's level, is he? And that's perhaps saying something. So maybe there's a bit of hope there. So yes, the Saros cycle is interesting. It's the idea that things do repeat every 19 years. Okay, so that's all I'm going to say for today. That was a bit of a chaotic video, but I hope you found that interesting, and I will talk to you again tomorrow.